deal with this third chapter, and it's using system utilities. Hang on just a second. Let me take care of something here at my desk. All right. So we're going to use system utilities in Windows 10, and we've got a lot of functionality that's added to Windows 10. So let's go look and see what we have that we can play with now in our Windows 10. So the objectives for this chapter, we're going to understand and use settings to configure Windows 10. We're going to understand the administrative tools that are available, manage hardware components, understand and configure power management. We're going to configure the displays, use Task Scheduler, and use PowerShell. So, settings, an overview of it, most configuration options for Windows 10 can be accessed through the settings. And all we have to do is click on the Start button down at the bottom, Start menu, and then click Settings. In Windows 7 and earlier things, they use Control Panel, and I talk about that in class, how much I miss Control Panel and how much I rely on it. And I still love to get into Control Panel. But now the easiest way is to jump into Settings, but it's still, the Control Panel is available in Windows 10. Most configurations options can be accessed through Settings, but some are still only accessible through the Control Panel. So that just explains why I love that Control Panel so much. All right. So the settings overview, here's what we got to deal with on the settings itself, Windows settings. We've got the system, devices, network and internet, personalization, accounts, time and language, ease of access, privacy, and update and security. Now this is like a one-stop shop when it comes to the different settings or configurations within Windows 10. When I say configurations, ways to personalize or set up your Windows 10 for a specific user or group or a specific use. Okay. So the system. In settings, a general purpose settings for Windows 10 is located in the system category. System settings include the things that I went through and listed, but we've got the display, the taskbar, notifications and actions, apps and features, multitasking, tablet mode, and battery saver. Now, we've also got power and sleep, storage, offline maps, default apps, and about. The devices that we can deal with in the devices category are printers and scanners, connected devices, Bluetooth, mouse and touchpad, typing, pen, autoplay, and USB. So it's the different things that we can deal with. So next up, we're looking at network and internet, and I'm going through each one of the things that we talked about in that overall settings window. The network and internet category contains things that deal with network and wireless connectivity. So we've got Wi-Fi, airplane mode, data usage, VPN, dial-up, Ethernet, and proxy. And we want to configure any of those. It's just a straight shot right to them. The personalization we can deal with is background, colors, lock screen, themes, and have a start. When we deal with accounts, it's user account information, your info, your email and app account, sign-in options, work access, family and other users, and to sync your settings. Now the time and language category has settings to manage time, display language, and speech. Now it's date and time, region and language, and speech. And the ease of access, this is something I don't use that often. I probably should use it more. It's narrator, magnifier, high contrast, closed captions, keyboard, mouse, and other options. As I get older, my eyes are getting worse. I may need magnifier. I may need to change the contrast of what I'm seeing or actually have a narrator in there. These are all things that can help us with visual or physical or hearing impairments. Okay. So the privacy option, that category, it's got a lot of settings to control whether apps have access to specific items in Windows 10. It also contains settings that control which data is sent back to Microsoft for diagnostic purposes. Not that Big Brother's always watching, but they want feedback from us. You can configure which apps are allowed to run in the background. Now, update and security, and Windows 10 updates all the time. And we've got in Update and Security, Windows Update, Windows Defender, Backup, Recovery, the activation itself, Find My Device, and there's an area for developers. Okay. So we've got administrative tools. And in the administrative tools, it's a collection of system configuration utilities found in the System and Security section in the control panel. Now, most tools in this category use the MMC, or the Microsoft Management Console. It's a framework that simplifies the development of administrative tools. Those tools include component services, defragment and optimize drives, disk cleanup, okay, event viewer, iSCSI initiator, local security policy, ODBC, open database connectivity, performance monitor, print management, resource monitor, and services. We've also got system configuration, task scheduler, Windows firewall and advanced security, and Windows memory diagnostic. There's a lot of utilities that exist, and we just go through and pick out of the system security section and control panel, pick which one we want to deal with whatever we have to deal with. Now, ODBC, we've got 32-bit as well as 64-bit. They're separate and distinct. And it depends on which one we're dealing with. Now, the system configuration. We've got a normal startup, diagnostic startup, or selective startup. The tabs, those are on general. We've also got boot, services, startup, and tools. The MMC is a graphical interface shell that provides a structured environment to build management utilities. Network administrators use MMC consoles with snap-ins to perform management tasks. Each console can host one or more snap-ins. A snap-in is a component that adds control mechanisms to the MMC console for a specific service or object. So here's our computer management. Okay, we've got system tools, and everything that we need is in here. This is our MMC console. Okay, so we call it computer management, but it's Microsoft Management Console, MMC. Now we can add different plugins to it, but for now, we'll just stick with what we've got. You can create a customized MMC console by adding the snap-ins you want to a single console, and then saving the console as a .msc file. You could share the .msc file between users and computers, and you may wish to restrict the ability of others to modify them. MMC console, we've got different modes. We've got author mode, user full mode access, user mode with limited access, multiple window, and user mode limited access, single window. And we need to be careful about who has access to this because it is a very powerful utility. In MMC, the console serves as a common troubleshooting and administrative interface for many different snap-ins. It's divided into 3 sections: system tools, storage, and the services and applications pane. System tools section, that contains task scheduler, event viewer, shared folders, local users and groups, performance, and device manager. Now the storage section, that contains disk management. When we get to the services and applications section, that contains services and WMI control. Now it's services, that's a type of Windows application, and it runs in the background without any interaction. They start up usually when the OS starts up. They may be initialized by some event that triggers them. They typically perform tasks for other software applications, or maybe housekeeping tasks for Windows 10. The services administrative tool, that's used to manage Windows 10 services. So here's our services, and we can see a list of different services. There's a description, and we can expand that out if we want to. The status, is that service running or not? How did it start up? Did it start up automatically when the system started, or was it manually triggered by something? And who's running it? How was it logged on as? Okay. So the services, the information, name, description, status, startup type, and log on as. We just talked about that. The properties of a service, there's the general, log on, recovery, and the dependencies. So hardware management. In Windows 10, it supports a wide variety of internal and external hardware components. We can't expect that it supports everything, but it does support a very wide array of hardware components. Windows 10 requires device drivers to manage and communicate with hardware components. Now I compare that to a translator. If all the hardware components speak a different dialect of the same language, we would need a different translator for each specific device so that the operating system can communicate with them. Microsoft does not provide a list of hardware that is compatible with Windows 10 because this changes over time. Now, in most cases, hardware that functioned properly in Windows 7 or newer works with Windows 10, but that's most cases. They don't want to commit to it. Now, a device driver is software that allows Windows 10 to properly communicate with and use the functionality of a device, act as an intermediary between a hardware component and an operating system, and contains the instructions of how to use the full capabilities of a device properly. Now, there may be times where somebody's written a device driver, it's not authorized, it's not certified, it wasn't created by the hardware vendor. It may work, but not fully work. So we need to be sure of where we get our device drivers from. In some cases, a device driver not specifically designed for hardware may allow that component to function, may function 100%, may function partially. And it's rough when we find out that it doesn't work the way we thought it would work. Some device drivers for previous versions of Windows do not work properly with Windows 10. Potential compatibility issues. 32-bit versions of Windows 10 require 32-bit drivers. 64-bit versions require 64-bit drivers. All driver files referenced in an infile.inf must be part of the driver installation package. Installers cannot display a user interface during installation. Digital signatures are required for 64-bit drivers that run in kernel mode. Now, potential compatibility issues, a few more. Windows 10 uses the NDIS 10X interface for network devices. Network drivers for WinXP are NDIS 5X and are not compatible. To ensure best performance, obtain an NDIS 6.0 or newer driver. Kernel mode printer drivers cannot be used in Windows 10. Now, Device Manager. In Device Manager, it's a primary tool for managing device drivers. View and modify hardware device properties. Tasks performed with the Device Manager, they include determining if installed hardware is functioning correctly, viewing and changing hardware resource settings, and determining and changing the drivers used by a device. Tasks that are performed by that, some more include enabling, disabling, and uninstalling devices, configuring advanced settings for devices, viewing and printing summary information about installed devices, pretty much everything we want to know or could know about the installed devices that we have associated with this Win 10 installation. So after installing Windows 10, use Device Manager to confirm that all devices are working properly. You can install an updated device driver from the Driver tab in the device properties. So when we go into, here's for a wireless device, and it says the name of it, where the driver came from, the date the driver was created, the version of it, what its digital signature or signer is Microsoft Windows. So we can rely on this. Okay, so we can go in and look at driver details, and we could find out more about that driver. Okay. Now, Device driver signing. Windows 10 uses file signatures on system files to ensure system stability. Now, device driver signing, it ensures that a driver for a specific hardware component has been verified by Microsoft. It's from a known software publisher. It ensures that the device driver has not been modified in any way since it was signed. Installing an unsigned driver generates the following messages. Windows can't verify the publisher of this driver software. The driver software has been altered. Or Windows cannot install this driver software. File the signature verification utility verifies that existing drivers and system files are signed. Components are signed resource settings. It allows them to access the system processor and memory in different ways. And that's where we're dealing with hardware component installation. 4 main resources are associated with it. Direct memory access, DMA channels, I/O ranges or input and output ranges, interrupt request or IRQ lines, and memory address ranges. They should be plug and play, and plug and play means automatically assigns resources to devices. Some USB devices require you to install the driver before attaching the USB device the first time. To simplify the location of device drivers, you can make them available by staging the drivers in the driver store or providing a location to search. Windows 10 contains a driver store. Store drivers in a centralized network location so you can access them from every device. Minimizing power usage is driven both by cost and environmental factors. Windows 10 relies on power management capabilities built into a computer to perform power management. Advanced Configuration and Power Interface, ACPI standard, it defines power states for global power management and individual devices. So here we go. This is what we have is a table that explains ACPI states, SO, S3, S4, S5, and G3. ACPI states, Windows 10 uses a combination of those states called hybrid sleep. It saves memory to the disk when entering the S3 state. Hybrid sleep advantages is if power is lost in the S3 state, the computer can recover from the S4 state on reboot. It eliminates the requirement to leave standby mode on to enter hibernation. A computer using modern standby resumes faster, providing an instant-on experience. The program can wake and respond to events such as receiving an instant message and sounding a notification. The system can also wake to perform scheduled maintenance, and it provides longer battery life than disconnected standby and instant go. And it's more important when we're dealing with mobile devices. A fast startup. When you shut down a Win 10 computer with fast startup enabled, it logs off all of the user accounts, closes all applications, and hibernates Win 10. When a computer is turned back on, it resumes from hibernation rather than performing a complete startup. The benefit of fast startup: faster restart times after performing a shutdown. If the OS becomes unstable, perform a restart to completely unload Win 10 and start again. We've got different power plans, whether we're dealing with AC and battery. Like I said, we have so many mobile devices now that they're trying to keep the OS geared towards mobile devices, because we're going to see more and more as time passes. Computers in away mode are in the S0 state. Computer looks and sounds like it's off, and maximize all device level power savings while continuing to work in the background if required. Now the characteristics: the video is blanked out, audio is muted, keyboard and mouse input is filtered out. And the SO power state is where we're at. And we've got the Powercfg.exe. It's a command line utility we can use to manage power plans. So we don't have to have a GUI interface to be able to interface with us. We can do it in the command line. Now, Windows 10 requires a display driver that supports Windows Display Driver Model, WDDM. It's DirectX 9. Windows 8 and newer do not use the Arrow Glass interface available in Windows 7. Solid Windows and Windows 10 require less graphics, processing, and are easier to view. Some features introduced with Arrow Glass are still present, such as live thumbnail previews of minimized applications. Now, display settings, they allow you to modify commonly configured display settings, so you can change the size of text in applications, change the orientation of monitors to be landscape or portrait. You can change the screen resolution, the number of pixels that are displayed. A pixel is a single dot on the screen. An optimal screen resolution varies depending on the display that you're using and your video card. Screen resolution can be set in the advanced display settings. Advanced display settings include options for color calibration, clear type text, advanced sizing of text, and other items. Display adapter properties as well. So here we go, this visual effects. Visual effects, what we can do. All right. And we'll move on. So we've got desktop backgrounds. You can personalize a desktop background, one of the most common actions users want to perform when receiving a new computer. Windows 10 comes with a number of desktop backgrounds for you to choose from. When you select a desktop background, you must also select how the graphic is laid out on the page. At one point in time, screensavers were used to prevent screen burn. Now it's used as a security mechanism for locking a computer. It increases security. And if we want to increase security, all we do is enable the On Resume Display Logon Screen option. So here we go with screensaver settings, and we can go through and modify it. Right there's a little checkbox in the middle, On Resume Display Logon Screen. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. The Windows 7 supports multiple monitors attached to a single computer. Now the options include duplicate, extended, or second screen only. That's Windows 7. Hardware requirements for multiple monitors depending on whether your computer is a laptop computer or a desktop computer. A new feature in Windows 10, when you use multiple desktops with a single monitor, you can group related apps on a desktop and switch between them easily. Now we've got Task Scheduler. It allows you to be proactive about computer maintenance. You can schedule a task to run at a particular time or after a particular event. Many Windows maintenance tasks are now performed automatically by the Task Scheduler. Features of Task Scheduler. The scheduled tasks do not need to store credentials locally in most cases. The Task Scheduler in Windows 10 allows all users to create scheduled tasks. The Task Scheduler summary shows the status of previously run and currently active tasks. You could schedule a task to run at a particular scheduled time, say 1 o'clock in the morning when we're sleeping. You can include multiple actions in a single task. Conditions include power states and network conditions. Now, other settings are available to control how tasks behave when they start or fail. Now we've got PowerShell. PowerShell looks like a command line interface. Okay. And it's written a little bit differently. We interact with it a little bit differently because it's got different commands to it. It can be used to create scripts. Now a script is an effective replacement for batch scripts and Visual Basic scripts. Some things you can do with Windows PowerShell. You can manage services. You can manage processes. You can manage networking. Windows 2016 Server Core primarily uses Windows PowerShell. So it's beneficial to get comfortable with and get familiar with Windows PowerShell. Now, you can also edit the registry in PowerShell, manipulate files and folders, and retrieve event logs. Individual commands, they're called commandlets, and they have a verb and a noun. Now they start out with a verb, and the verb describes what you want to do. And the common verbs are get, set, remove, start, and stop. Now the nouns could be something a list of permissions. There's so many things that we can get when it comes to nouns. All right. The items that are retrieved by a get are the objects you can examine and manipulate. All right. If I did get dash and then use the asterisk, it'll give me a list of items. Now, two important characteristics of objects. Objects have properties that can be examined and modified. When you query a list of objects, you can pipe those objects together to another commandlet for further processing. All right. Each commandlet has a default output format that identifies which properties are displayed in list format or table format. Now, in list format, it displays each property as a separate line, and each object is listed consecutively. In table format, it displays object properties in a table format where each table or each object is a row and each property is a column. Now we've got script editing in PowerShell that's integrated into the scripting environment. Now, we use the Windows PowerShell integrated scripting environment to create PowerShell scripts. It provides color coding of the script as you type it. It helps you identify when syntax errors are entered. So essentially what this means in this ISE, as I'm typing a commandlet, if my commandlet or my script is not correct when it comes to the syntax of it, it will let me know that a syntax error exists and I can take corrective steps. Okay, so we'll see here how it's laid out. This is the PowerShell. We see the script, and here is the code for it. So to wrap things up, settings provides an access to change the most commonly manipulated settings in Windows 10. Administrative tools is a collection of system maintenance utilities. Windows 10 uses device drivers to properly communicate with various hardware components. And Device Manager, it's the MMC snap-in that's used to manage device drivers and hardware components. Windows 10 will allow 32-bit systems to install unsigned drivers. Power management in Windows 10 reduces power utilization, and it allows the computer to go to sleep or hibernate when not in use. Windows 10 requires a video card and video driver that supports the Windows Display Driver model, the WWDM, and DirectX 9. The display, it can be customized by controlling the display resolution, color depth, and refresh rate. Task Scheduler has been enhanced with security improvements for credentials, improved logging, and expanded triggers for starting tasks. Windows PowerShell is a command line interface for managing Windows 10 that utilizes commandlets, verb, noun, commands. That's our Unit 3. I'll see you in Unit 4, and keep up the hard work.